Well, hello everyone, and welcome once again to Vlogitas. I'm Ramsey, and in this Bible Truth series, we are going through the Word, chapter, and verse. We have gone through the first 5 books of the Bible and did a little bit of Isaiah. Now we are in Joshua, and we are with the Israelites as they go through and conquer the land. I do have quite a bit of things highlighted out in Joshua. We've just now gotten into where it's going to be highlighted out quite a bit. And, well, warfare gets kind of graphic, and it could be possible that maybe some of it was unnecessary, but I'm not going to speculate that. It just it does get pretty graphic. But before we get into that, I'll go ahead and say I do have all of chapter 7 highlighted out, but I will give a little brief overview of it before we move on, so that you understand why. I'll get into that. So for chapter 8, I have part of verse 22, the last part of verse 22 highlighted out. I have verses 24 down through 26 highlighted out. I have verse 29 highlighted out. Again, these things are, graphic. In chapter 10, I have part of verse 1 highlighted out, a couple parts of it highlighted out, and then I have verse 10 highlighted out. And then I have from verse 16 all the way down to the end of the chapter highlighted out. And, just because, again, it's just a record of this is what happened. It was pretty brutal warfare. So I have in verse 11, or chapter 11, and we may not get to chapter 11, but I'll just go ahead and give you the highlights out. I have verse 6 highlighted out, I have verse 9 highlighted out, I have part of verse 10 highlighted out, most of verse 11 highlighted out, I have verse 12 highlighted out, the end of the end of verse 14 highlighted out, and part of 17 and part of 18 verses highlighted out. And again, don't know if we'll get that far, we may not, but just just kind of giving you a glimpse on ahead. And if you read those things just by themselves, if you take them out of their setting and you just read them by themselves, it seems like, wow, God sometimes seems really uncaring. This is why a lot of people really, when they look at the Bible, they think of God as having a major personality change between the Old Testament and the New. And that's not really what it is at all, because the type of covenant that we have with God dictates how He is going to respond to mankind. We live in the age of grace, where Jesus has paid for all of our sins, and so we don't need to worry about coming under this type of judgment. But it's good to note that these people had hundreds of years to change their ways, and they absolutely refused. And we do see people who are spared because they do turn to God. And so it's just a matter of are people going to choose God or not? Choose life or not? And if they choose death, God's not going to allow them to just cause harm in His world forever. He is going to remove them, and that's why I've said it many times, where there's a difference between judgment against an individual and judgment against a nation. And this is God's judgment against these nations. Okay? Now, God does, there is a measure of judgment that's meted out against the Israelites here, where I have chapter 7 highlighted out. If you remember the previous episode of Vlogitas, where we talked about how the city of Jericho was devoted to destruction. Everything in it had to be completely destroyed. Anything that could survive the fire, metal, that was then dedicated to the treasury in God's tabernacle. And God said, don't take any of it for yourselves. Well, chapter 7, you find out that someone did take some of it for themselves, and they hid it in their tent. And so the Bible mentions, one of the things that Joshua told the people is, don't take anything that's devoted to destruction. Because, see, if they were to take that, then they identify with destruction. So it not only is it a direct disobedience to a command from God, but it's a very specific disobedience. It's taking something it's identifying with something that is set apart for destruction because of what the nations in the land had done. And so this guy took some of that and hid it, but Joshua had made it very clear, if any of you take it, see, we stand and fall together as a nation. If any of you take it, then you make the entire nation liable for trouble. And so, by one man taking it, then now the entire nation is now they're all in trouble. And so what happens is that Joshua doesn't know about it. So this guy took it, he hides it. Joshua doesn't know about it. They go to take the next town, and they completely fail. Why? Well, because God's not with them. Because somebody in the camp had done something wicked that God specifically told him not to do, and so that made the entire nation liable. And so when Joshua realized what happened, he doesn't know what happens. He goes to God and says, "What happened? We just had victory, and now we've lost it." And he's all upset. And God says, "Get up. There's sin in the camp. Go take care of it." So they do. They take care of it, and judgment has to fall upon that one individual because he accepts the responsibility for what he did. Judgment falls upon him rather than the nation, and so then they're okay and they can move on. So we'll go ahead and pick up here in chapter 8. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid or discouraged. Take all your fighting men and attack Ai, for I have given you the king of Ai, his people, his town, and his land. You will destroy them as you destroyed Jericho and its king. But this time you may keep the plunder and the livestock for yourselves. Set an ambush behind the town." And so, because Ai was the second town he tried to attack and failed because of the sin in the camp, and now that that's taken care of, now God says, okay, now you can go take it. Verse 3, So Joshua and all the fighting men set out to attack Ai. Joshua chose 30,000 of his best warriors and sent them out at night, with these orders: hide in ambush close behind the town and be ready for action. When our main army attacks, the men of Ai will come out to fight as they did before, and we will run away from them. We will let them chase us until we have drawn them away from the town, for they will say, the Israelites are running away from us as they did before. Then while we are running from them, you will jump up from your ambush and take possession of the town, for the Lord your God will give it to you. Set the town on fire, as the Lord has commanded. You have your orders. So they left and went to the place of ambush between Bethel and the west side of Ai. But Joshua remained among the people in the camp that night. Early the next morning, Joshua roused his men and started toward Ai, accompanied by the elders of Israel. All the fighting men who were with Joshua marched in front of the town and camped on the north side of Ai, with a valley between them and the town. That night Joshua sent about 5,000 men to lie in ambush between Bethel and Ai, on the west side of the town. So they stationed the main army north of the town and the ambush west of the town. Joshua himself spent that night in the valley. When the king of Ai saw the Israelites across the valley, he and all his army hurried out early in the morning and attacked the Israelites at a place overlooking the Jordan Valley. But he didn't realize there was an ambush behind the town. Joshua and the Israelite army fled toward the wilderness as though they were badly beaten. Then all the men in the town were called out to chase after them. In this way they were lured away from the town. So they leave their town completely unprotected to go and attack Joshua because it looks like Joshua's running away. This is a picture of what the lifestyle that they chose. This is a picture of where the lifestyle that they chose has left them. They have left them. They have left themselves completely vulnerable to judgment because they have persisted in this way of thinking that we can do things our way. In fact, the word Ai means ruin. What they have done has led them to ruin. Okay, so Joshua and the Israelite army fled toward the wilderness as though they were badly beaten. Oh, you already read that. Verse 17, There was not a man left in Ai or Bethel who did not chase after the Israelites, and the town was left wide open. Then the Lord said to Joshua, Point the spear in your hand toward Ai, for I will hand the town over to you. Joshua did as he was commanded. As soon as Joshua gave this signal, all the men in ambush jumped up from their position and poured into the town. They quickly captured it and set it on fire. There are some things that are just spiritually understood. You just know. You just have an understanding. Something happens and you just have an understanding. And there was no, even though God said set an ambush behind the town, He told the men that He didn't give them much instruction beyond that. In the thick of battle, all of a sudden God tells Joshua, point your spear toward the town. As soon as he did that, it was just understood. The men in ambush understood, this is the signal, we need to go in and attack. And so this is just an example of God participating in bringing about a success in the moment. And God will do that for anybody, who lives to serve Him. Okay, so verse 19 again. As soon as Joshua gave this signal, all the men in ambush jumped up from their position and poured into the town. They quickly captured it and set it on fire. When the men of Ai looked behind them, smoke from the town was filling the sky, and they had nowhere to go. For the Israelites who had fled in the direction of the wilderness now turned on their pursuers. When Joshua and all the other Israelites saw that the ambush had succeeded and that smoke was rising from the town, they turned and attacked the men of Ai. Meanwhile, the Israelites who were inside the town came out and attacked the enemy from the rear. So the men of Ai were caught in the middle with Israelite fighters on both sides. Israel attacked them. Only the king of Ai was taken alive and brought to Joshua. So this is what judgment will look like. For this is the perspective of the judged. When they persist in wrongdoing and they reach the end of their rope, they realize there's no escape. There's nowhere for me to go, and that's the sad part, because God doesn't. The Bible says God takes no pleasure in the death of one who dies. If people would only listen and they would do what God says, but He, for the sake of those who are innocent, who would come under harm, if He allowed people to persist so far into wickedness, He will take them out of the way in order for other people who would accept Him to be able to survive long enough to do so. And so, it's as one minister said, it's a very sad thing. It says that's the saddest thing for a person to choose to pay for their own sins than to accept what Jesus did for them on the cross. And unfortunately, there will be people who do that. So moving on down to verse 27, only the livestock and the treasures of the town were not destroyed, for the Israelites kept these as plunder for themselves, as the Lord had commanded Joshua. So Joshua burned the town of Ai, and it became a permanent mound of ruins, desolate to this very day. Verse 30, then Joshua built an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, on Mount Ebal. He followed the commands that Moses, the Lord's servant, had written in the book of instruction. Make me an altar from stones that are uncut and have not been shaped with iron tools. Then on the altar they presented burnt offerings and peace offerings to the Lord. And as the Israelites watched, Joshua copied onto the stones of the altar the instructions Moses had given them. This was an instruction Moses gave them at the end of Deuteronomy, if you remember. Joshua is now fulfilling that instruction. Then all the Israelites, foreigners and native born alike, along with the elders, officers and judges, were divided into two groups. One group stood in front of Mount Gerizim, the other in front of Mount Ebal. Each group faced the other, and between them stood the Levitical priests carrying the ark of the Lord's covenant. This was all done according to the commands that Moses, the servant of the Lord, had previously given for blessing the people of Israel. Then Joshua read to them all the blessings and curses Moses had written in the book of instruction. Every word of every command that Moses had ever given was read to the entire assembly of Israel. You know how long it took us to get through Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. It took us all a long time, and we were doing it, Joshua's just doing it all in one sitting. That would take a very long time. Okay, so chapter 9. Now all the kings west of the Jordan River heard about what had happened. These were the kings of the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites who lived in the hill country, in the western foothills, and along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea as far north as the Lebanon mountains. These kings combined their armies to fight as one against Joshua and the Israelites. The Bible talks too about how when Jesus was sent to the cross, that you had all these different people, the Jews, the Romans, all these different people that normally were at odds. They come together against Jesus. And so this is a picture of that, where instead of acknowledging these people serve the living and true God, maybe we ought to listen to what they have to say, or at least, instead they combine their forces, because it's like, well, we'll just band as many of us together as we can and we'll fight against them. And the Bible talks about that in Psalm chapter 2, It says, why did the nations rage? Why? But they all gathered together against the Lord and His anointed. And so people, for some reason, think that by banding together, they will be able to withstand God. But they should just yield to God. He's the creator anyway. So verse 3, but when the people of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and Ai, they resorted to deception to save themselves. They sent ambassadors to Joshua, loading their donkeys with weathered saddlebags and old patched wineskins. They put on worn-out, patched sandals and ragged clothes, and the bread they took with them was dry and moldy. When they arrived at the camp of Israel at Gilgal, they told Joshua and the men of Israel, "We have come from a distant land to ask you to make a peace treaty with us." And remember, God had previously told them that if they had to go to war against a distant land, they were to first make a term, offering of peace before they actually fought with them. And so you have these people coming and saying, "We're coming from a distant land," although they lied. They were actually coming from a very short distance away. But they're offering peace. And so on the face of it, it looks good. It looks like, oh, yeah, okay, well, we can make peace with you. You live far away. God told us that we could do that with people who live far away, not people who are near, because those nations are set apart for destruction. And so, verse 7, the Israelites replied to these Hivites, "How do we know you don't live nearby? For if you do, we cannot make a treaty with you." They replied, "We are your servants." "But who are you?" Joshua demanded. "Where do you come from?" You got to love this. You probably have had a conversation with this where someone you ask them a direct question and they completely try to deflect. It's like, where do you live? Do you live nearby? We're your servants. That didn't answer our question. Where are you from? Where do you come from? Joshua's, "Who are you?" Joshua demanded. "Where do you come from?" Verse 9. They answered, "Your servants have come from a very distant country. We have heard of the might of the Lord your God and of all He did in Egypt. We have also heard what He did to the two Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, King Sihon of Heshbon and King Og of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth. So our elders and all our people instructed us, 'Take supplies for a long journey. Go meet with the people of Israel and tell them, we are your servants. Please make a treaty with us. This bread was hot from the ovens when we left our homes, but now, as you can see, it is dry and moldy. These wineskins were new when we filled them, but now they are old and split open, and our clothing and sandals are worn out from our very long journey.'" You gotta love their story. They're spinning quite a tale here. Verse 14, so the Israelites examined their food, but they did not consult the Lord. What did they do? They looked at the physical evidence of what they could see right in front of them instead of looking past the surface and saying, maybe we should consult God and find out what He has to say before we reply. Verse 15, then Joshua made a peace treaty with them and guaranteed their safety. And the leaders of the community ratified their agreement with a binding oath. Remember we talked about oaths? God took even foolish oaths seriously. They're binding. Because words have power. And that's why God was like that. That's why God said, don't take any foolish oaths. That's why if somebody living in a man's household before they reached the age had made an oath and they came back and the dad found out about it, the dad could say, I'm releasing you of that oath. It's a foolish oath. And so that's why Jesus also told us, don't swear at all. Don't make any oaths. Better to not. And so they make this oath. Well, it's binding now. Verse 16, 3 days after making the treaty, they learned that these people actually lived nearby. The Israelites set out at once to investigate and reached their towns in 3 days. The names of these towns were Gibeon, Kephirah, Beeroth, and Kiriath-Jearim. But the Israelites did not attack the towns, for the Israelite leaders had made a vow to them in the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. The people of Israel grumbled against their leaders because of the treaty. But the leaders replied, since we have sworn an oath in the presence of the Lord, the God of Israel, we cannot touch them. This is what we must do. We must let them live, for divine anger would come upon us if we broke our oath. See, this is why God told them, don't make any peace treaties with the people in the land, because they would be binding. And so, because God is going to see that they honor their oath, their agreement, even though God didn't want them to make it in the first place. So, see, God doesn't always get what He wants. He doesn't always get what He desires, and it always has to do with the decisions of people. At the same time, there are people who will do what God wants, and to Him that makes it worth it. So be one of those people. So, verse 21, let them live. So they made them woodcutters and water carriers for the entire community, as the Israelite leaders directed. Joshua called together the Gibeonites and said, why did you lie to us? Why did you say that you live in a distant land when you live right here among us? May you be cursed. From now on you will always be servants who cut wood and carry water for the house of my God. They replied, we did it because we, your servants, were clearly told that the Lord your God commanded his servant Moses to give you this entire land and to destroy all the people living in it. So we feared greatly for our lives because of you. That is why we have done this. Now we are at your mercy. Do to us whatever you think is right. So Joshua did not allow the people of Israel to kill them. But that day he made the Gibeonites the woodcutters and water carriers for the community of Israel and for the altar of the Lord, wherever the Lord would choose to build it. And that is what they do to this day. Well, that's what they do as a nation to this day. And again, that note of when it says to this day, that means to the day that this was written. Now, because obviously that's no longer the case. But so what happened to the Gibeonites? Well, they probably were eventually assimilated into God's people. See, because God made it clear that any foreigner living among them, and that's what they were, could come near, take the Passover, and become Israelites. And we did read that there were certain specifications for certain nations, but most nations could just do this. And so it's very possible that this Gibeonite nation could have been completely absorbed into the people of Israel and become Jews themselves. And so I believe you already gave me the signal, yeah? Okay, so I want to make sure that we covered everything, which I think we did. So again, it's like I said, you do see that there are people who do come out of their wicked ways and they do turn to God. Now, Rahab did that immediately. These people probably did it more over time. Because of fear, they did what they did. In Rahab's case, it was motivated by fear, but she also recognized you serve the true God, and we see that she lived among the Israelites, became an Israelite herself. So, let's go ahead and pray. Father, I thank you so much for your word. I thank you, Lord, that even though on the surface you may seem harsh, you're only harsh to those who have been given fair warning and still refuse to obey. And so I thank you, Lord, that you sent Jesus to die for us, and that even though we do serve you, we serve you as sons and daughters. You have adopted us into your kingdom, into your very household, and made us joint heirs together with Christ. And it's an amazing blessing, Father God. It would have been enough for you just to save us, but you went far beyond that and made us your sons and daughters, Lord, adopted children that are welcome in your courtroom at the foot of your throne any time. And I thank you for it. And in Jesus' mighty name, we thank you for the blood of Jesus, which saves us and cleanses us of all sin. And in Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. Well, bless you guys, and we will see you again.